So what do I really need to start learning martial arts at home? So if you're thinking about starting martial arts in a sort of a non-traditional context as a non-trad student of martial arts, training at home, training on your own or with a family member, with a partner, but not in the normal school environment, maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't really have everything that I need. I don't have all the equipment, I don't have a uniform, and I can't get started yet. Maybe those questions haunt you or cause you to hesitate a little bit. Well, I want to address some of those concerns, and you might be surprised to learn that you really don't need a whole lot to get started. Let's discuss. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. We don't need to break the bank, buying all the sorts of fancy equipment, a fancy uniform, belt, all that. You don't really need that to get started, and really you might not need all of that stuff at all. And sure, some types of equipment would be helpful to have, but they're not necessary and certainly not required to begin. So don't let not having any of those things keep you from starting. So I'll go over the things that we really don't need yet or at all, the things we really do need, and for those of you who are just itching to buy something, maybe that helps you to commit to an activity by purchasing something, where to start, what's most essential. So what are the things that we don't need? Well, you don't need a belt. You don't need a uniform, right? It's perfectly fine just to train in normal clothes, in your sweatpants. You can even train in jeans. You can, I guess, train in dress pants if you want, but try not to break them. But really, if we're trying to be very practical in our self-defense training especially, we do want to practice at least sometimes in the clothes that we wear normally. I might be surprised to know that I don't walk around in this. And so really we should be training in those normal clothes. If you wear jeans, wear jeans. If you wear a suit a lot, well, maybe get a cheaper suit so you don't rip a really expensive one, but you want to try to train in them so that you'll know if you have certain mobility restrictions and all that. But you don't need a uniform, you don't need a belt, certainly not to start, and you really probably don't need it at all. If you want one, that's fine, but you don't need it. It's not required. Don't let that stop you from training. You don't need a punching bag, you don't need pads, you don't need the gloves, you don't need the padded sword, you don't need a fancy bow staff, you don't need a sword, you don't need big mats. If you have carpet, that's good enough. You don't need the giant kind of mattress type mats to flip people over yet. Maybe eventually that'll be helpful for you, but a carpeted area is fine. Even the grass, if you can make sure it's safe and there are no rocks and dog poop and all that. You know, use what you have available to you. You also don't need hours and hours of time. So some people think they need a bunch of stuff, or that they need a special uniform, that they need to wear things and have things in order to get started. That's not true. But you also don't need a whole lot of time. Right? If you're willing to dedicate maybe half an hour, a few times a week, maybe up to an hour a couple times a week, and as you really engage with the curriculum, engage with the process, and you come to love it, then you'll be able to find time to carve out more time because it becomes something you love. But especially at the beginning, you don't need to let the prospect of having something suck all of your free time away be daunting for you. That's not necessary, so long as you focus in that time that you do dedicate to it. So what are the things that we do need? Some non-negotiables. Well, you need some open space. You don't need a whole ton of it. You don't need a whole giant open field or a whole giant warehouse open space. You can do this in a dorm room. You can do this in a hotel room. I have a very good friend who travels a whole lot for work. He's gone most weeks of the year, and he's back home usually on the weekends. And so he has this kind of primary training time on the weekends. But then he's also, because he loves this stuff, he's practicing in the hotel rooms as he's traveling. Or he's not letting the diversity of his environments inhibit his training, because he loves it. He likes to practice a lot. He likes to exercise, he likes to work out and make sure that he's fit and make sure that he's always growing, always learning, always progressing. And so you don't need a whole lot of space, at least not for every one of the subjects that we practice. Maybe for some of the things it would be helpful to have a bit of room if you want to practice a flying side kick or to do a roll, do a roll over breakfall. But for some of these things, you really don't need a whole lot of room. So I have this space. It's really not that fancy. It's really not impressive. It's just in the basement here. And I was able to clear a bunch of stuff, and to clean it up a little bit, I put these bed sheets. I just ordered a bunch of bed sheets from Amazon, and just to kind of create a neater backdrop. It's not that it's very professional, not that it's very incredible, but you don't need to see the storage area behind the camera. You don't need a professional studio area for you to practice. You just need some open space. Maybe just push over the couch a couple times a week so that you can have that space in the living room. Right, move the coffee table over, push the couch to the side, and now you have a nice open space, and you just need that for half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, a couple times a week. Right, if you have a basement that you can dedicate to it, try to get the Legos out of the way. You don't want to be doing your form and you don't want to be turning and doing your form in a nice low block and then plant all your weight into a Lego. Nope, we don't want that. Been there. Especially if you're just getting started, any open space will do. right? And you also need a partner, right? For most of the things that you do, you can practice by yourself. If you're practicing your basic actions, you're practicing your form, you're practicing even just some of the combinations for sparring, or even some of the moves in grappling, you can practice in a solo format. But for some of it, for self-defense, for actual sparring, for actual grappling, you will need a partner, right? Because you can go through the motion sort of shadow box and sort of shadow spar and shadow grapple and practice the self-defense by yourself and imagine to an extent, but really you need to pressure test it for the sake of knowing that your defense works, that you can successfully defend yourself against that particular attack, right? And also to grow, and also to learn. So if you're sparring and you have a particular combination that you think might work, and you try it and it doesn't work as you expected, well, that you will learn from experience and you will grow in those skills based on experience. And that experience will come from partner training. And of course, it also helps to have another pair of eyes when you are practicing your form, when you're practicing your basic actions. Or you can have a mirror, that's very helpful. You can record yourself, that's great too. But you have another person, another brain, another opinion to give you feedback. Constructive, where they're not roasting you all the time, but or if they can be constructive and charitable, then that can be very, very helpful. So it's always better to have some sort of partner, some sort of team to train with, so you can keep each other accountable, keep each other on the path, always growing, always learning, always continuing to progress forward, and also because you need partners for some of the stuff that we do. But most importantly, you need drive. Of all the things that you do need, you need to have the drive to train. You need to be able to commit yourself, dedicate yourself each time to focusing for the duration of that session. Half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. If you're crazy like me, you might train for a few hours at a time sometimes. Not that that's necessary, but if you want to, by all means. And to keep showing up, right? So if you commit and dedicate yourself, promise to yourself and to your teammates, your partner, your training partner, and those who are training together, those to whom you're accountable, you're trying to hold yourself accountable and you're holding accountable as well, to train twice a week, and you do that faithfully for a time, you will see tremendous growth just from showing up and engaging it. Italiano. You don't need to pay thousands to be part of an elite academy. You don't need to buy this fancy, expensive uniform direct from Japan. No. You don't need to spend hours every day, not even an hour every day, but enough time during the week, consistently showing up, putting in the work to grow, to continue to engage the process, to keep learning, to keep reinforcing, to keep tweaking, to keep refining, and to keep progressing forward. You need the drive to stay on track. You need the drive to continue to push yourself to engage the process. Because it's not always easy. Sometimes you're tired, sometimes things get busy. Life gets busy. Like this whole channel is primarily directed at those of us who are in a sort of non-traditional context for our training. We want to train, but it's not like the normal, typical, standard way, right? It's not every Tuesday, every Thursday at 6 to 7, right? Especially for us, it doesn't always fit like that. But we still need to show up. We still need to have some sort of consistency, some sort of commitment and dedication to this task. Right? So if you have enough motivation, if you have the drive to train, to show up and learn, and if you have a little bit of open space and you can find a friend or a family member, some sort of a training partner, at least sometimes, for self-defense, sparring, grappling, for some of the subjects, and you can do the rest on your own. If you have those things, those are what are essential. Those are what you need to get started. And really, those are what you need, period. You don't need a whole bunch of weapons. You don't need a whole bunch of equipment. You don't need a whole giant open space. You don't need a fancy uniform or belt. So don't let any of those things get in your way. Don't wait until you have the perfect setup, until you have the perfect space in your home, until you have the perfect schedule, because those will never come if you want to get started now. So if you found that helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would like this video and share it with someone who would benefit from this message. Someone who maybe is hesitant to begin because they're waiting for the perfect setup. Well, it's not going to come. You have to be ready, and when you're ready, you just have to begin. Maybe you need some encouragement, and I hope you found that here. And if you really need to buy something, if that will help you to dedicate yourself to this endeavor, then I would say you don't need to start with a uniform, you don't need to start with a belt. If you don't have a carpet, maybe get a rug, something that you can have a sort of a padded area on the ground. I would say start with some sort of a punching bag. Right? They range in price, so under $100 or a few $100s if you want the big freestanding one. I like the freestanding ones. You can get the ones that hang from the ceiling if your surroundings will support that. Or you can get one of these kind of human shaped punching bags. Something like that would be where I would start. But I think that's a significant enough investment if you really need to buy something to help you commit, to help encourage you on the path. Right? And it provides really great reinforcement because you can strike it, you can make sure you have the proper hand technique that it won't hurt your hand, hurt your fingers. And it feels really good to hit something sometimes, right? It's gonna be a great stress relief. Yeah, feels great. And then from there I would check out something like this. This is from Tiger Claw, just some sort of a shield type pad like this, that especially with the training partner, they can hold it and you can kick against it, you can punch it, you can move it around for different types of things. This is really helpful too. Of course, as time goes on, we'll have videos to show you how to use these kinds of simple, basic equipment that are more accessible to us, especially if you have financial constraints. So the punching bag and this shield kind of pad, those are where I would start in terms of equipment. You don't need a uniform, you don't need a belt, you don't need to buy any or sort of fancy things. There are expensive things out there if you want down the road, but you don't need those to start. And really, I wouldn't encourage you to start with those anyway. Train with what you have, use the surroundings you have, use what's available to you now. So I hope you found some encouragement. Let me know if you thought that you needed a whole bunch of equipment to get started. Let me know if you're more ready to begin this journey as a non-traditional martial artist. Comment down below your thoughts, your reactions, any questions that you might have, other topics you'd like me to cover, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Until then, fruitful training and have a great life.